A young woman named Annabelle starts her life over in Providence, Rhode Island, after her husband's mysterious death. The death was ruled accidental, but there were unanswered questions. Annabelle was heartbroken and had no one to turn to. She had been a stay-at-home housewife for years, but with her education and work background, she was able to land a job as an administrative assistant with a respectable company. She found a small, cozy rental home in a middle-class neighborhood. Annabelle is lovely. She has dark flowing hair and beautiful brown eyes. Her smile lights up a room, and she always kept her slender figure. She's in her early 40s now, but she's just as attractive as when she was 25, if not more so now. The years have been kind to her, and she has matured gracefully. Annabelle starts receiving calls about her late husband's death that makes her question whether it truly was an accident or not. She had been trying not to think about his death. She wanted to think on new, pleasant things, but now was forced to revisit her sorrow. Annabelle's husband, Gary, went missing and was later found dead in a creek in the woods behind their home in Michigan. Gary had gone missing in the middle of the night while Annabelle slept. Everything was fine when they went to bed, but Annabelle woke up in the middle of the night to find him missing. She was drenched in sweat, which was unusual for her. A caller who identifies as Julia leaves a voicemail for Annabelle and tells her she has information about Gary's death. She makes an outrageous claim that she and Gary had been planning on leaving the country together. Gary was to leave Annabelle for good, and they had planned to go to Rio. Julia also claimed to be pregnant with Gary's unborn child. All of this was very shocking to Annabelle. She had knots in her stomach. She felt like she was going to be sick. She didn't know what to think, and it was all very sudden and unnerving. She thought her marriage had been solid and never suspected anything. Gary was the love of her life, or so she thought. Julia called from a blocked number and didn't leave a phone number, but says she'll call again. That night, when she was trying to sleep, Annabelle tossed and turned. She started having flashbacks of her life with Gary, of their last evening together. They had a romantic dinner for two, and everything was so special. She couldn't believe he was really going to leave her and go to Rio with that woman on the voicemail. Annabelle went to work and tried to put it out of her mind, although that woman's voice and what she said still entered her thoughts during the day. She was sad and confused, but continued with her work the best she could. Upon arriving home from work, Annabelle noticed a new voicemail on her phone. She was hesitant to even play it and uneasy about what it might reveal. Was that woman telling the truth? Annabelle plays the voicemail. It's Julia again. She says again that she has information about Gary's death. Annabelle is shaking. What could this woman possibly know? Julia's voice is smooth. She's confident about what she says. She says that Gary was supposed to meet her the night he died, but that he never showed up. They were supposed to finalize their plans for a new life together. The next thing Annabelle found unusual was the fact that Julia knew details about Gary that she couldn't have possibly known unless she was in fact telling the truth. Shockingly, she also knew details about the crime scene that weren't revealed to the public. How did she know these things? Julia said Gary was concerned for his safety. His business partner had borrowed money from a loan shark and used Gary's name. The business partner left town, and now they were after Gary for the repayment of the debt. If Gary didn't come up with the money fast, they'd kill him for sure. That's why he and Julia were going to Rio. Annabelle had never heard such a thing. Gary never mentioned anything like this to her. The voicemail was so long it nearly filled the whole mailbox. Annabelle couldn't believe her ears. This wasn't Gary. This had to be a mistake. The voicemail ended. Julia, again, did not leave a phone number, and her number was blocked. She didn't say if she'd call back. Annabelle thought about the things Julia said for the rest of the night. Who was she? Where did she come from? Annabelle would be devastated if Gary was not the man she thought she knew. She had a glass of red wine and went to sleep. Annabelle woke up with a strange feeling. She noticed something written on the mirror at her dressing table. Someone else had been in her room. It was written in bright red lipstick, and it said, Annabelle Rose Atkins, born November 17th, 1981, died April 30th, 2024. Annabelle froze. She was in utter shock at what she saw. Who had written this message? Her mouth became dry like cotton, and the hair on the back of her neck stood up. April 30th is in 3 days. Was she going to die in 3 days? Her heart was racing. What did this mean, and who wrote this message? Annabelle called into her work and asked to take the day off because she wasn't feeling well. The boss was kind and understanding. He told her not to worry and to stay home and get better. Annabelle decided to take a bath and relax to try and take her mind off everything. She lit candles and placed them around the tub. She hears the phone ring, but she ignores it. After her bath, she checked the phone, but there was no voicemail. It was a Michigan number that she didn't recognize. Annabelle falls asleep and doesn't wake up until the next morning. After arising, Annabelle finds there's a new voicemail from the HR department at work. They needed some additional information to put in her file. It seems they didn't have her social security number for some reason. They also asked to see her social security card. Annabelle searches for her social security card in the safe that she and Gary had installed in their walk-in closet. She stumbles upon a letter from a psychiatrist addressed to Gary. It was about Julia. The letter mentioned visits with Julia and prior hospitalization regarding a mental condition. It stated that he was referring her to a colleague of his at Stanford University, Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences in California. There were no other details. Why did Gary have a letter addressed to him about Julia? The strangest thing was that Julia was using Gary and Annabelle's last name. Annabelle was devastated. She now knew the man she loved and cherished for 15 years had a double life. Annabelle fainted. When she finally woke up, she found a new voicemail on her phone. It was Julia again. This time, her tone had changed drastically and her behavior was unbelievable. She said that Gary had loved her and not Annabelle. She said he never loved Annabelle. She said Annabelle was the reason Gary died and that everything was her fault. She said Annabelle was a stupid tramp and that she came between her and Gary. That they would have been happy if it hadn't been for her. Annabelle thought to herself, "Came between you and Gary? He was my husband. What is this woman talking about?" Again, it was a blocked number. Annabelle was in tears. She looked up to find another message in bright red lipstick that said, 2 more days. She's horrified and doesn't understand what's happening to her. Annabelle goes to the safe again and finds 3 more items. She finds a birth certificate, a high school diploma, and a bachelor's degree. The name on all 3 documents read Julia Rose Atkins. The date of birth on the birth certificate read November 17th, 1981. She also found old records from Julia's hospitalization that Gary had apparently requested from the mental institution. Her case file mentioned a history of abuse, self-harm, and very serious psychiatric disorders. Annabelle turned the page to see a Polaroid photo of Julia attached to the case file, and she sees herself. Gary's business partner was never heard from again, and he is still listed as a missing person with the Michigan State Police. Gary's cause of death is still listed as accidental. Julia Rose Atkins was found dead on April 30th, 2024. Her cause of death is listed as undetermined and remains unexplained.